Okay, so now we're recording. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to screen share just to show you, I think. I'd like you to go to the week 5 participation discussion board because there's 2 documents there that I want to use today, and you'll want to have access to them. The first one is the peer feedback instructions, which is they're both Word documents, so that I'll go over that first. And the second one is this document, Knowles Chaucer draft. It's just like a rough draft of again, a close reading paper. So it would be good to have those 2 things open. I'm not sure what technology you're using today, so I don't know how easy that will be if you're on your phone. Everybody okay getting those?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. So what I'll do first is just walk you through my philosophy about peer feedback. And those of you that have had me as a teacher before will know the gist, but I'll talk you through it again. If you're headed into teaching yourself, you might think a little bit about your relationship with peer feedback. I know that teachers find it difficult to do if the students don't stay on task. And yet I also know that it can be done as early as 2nd grade. So even elementary kids can be trained slowly to do peer feedback, kind of a gradual release. What I often do at the lower division level is really control the kinds of things I want readers to say to writers. But at the upper division, I'm just going to ask you to work with the criteria for the assignment. And I'm sure you can handle it in any event. So here's the kind of my philosophy around peer feedback. I think it's an incredible part of developing writing skills for academic work and also for the working world. When you can respond helpfully to others, you can also critically examine your own work. It's part of the way cognitively I'm asking you to get outside your own writing and look back at it from the outside or attempt to. And when you do some analysis of someone else's work, it makes that process easier. You know, I don't know about you, but when I write a paper myself, it sounds great to me because I've got all the knowledge in my head that helps me understand what I'm trying to say. And when I give it to someone else, they can really help me see that I maybe didn't say it as well as I could have for an outsider. And I think the process of giving feedback also helps me be better at that distancing that has to happen for me to see when my writing isn't working. I think too, when you have your writing responded to by others, you get a sense of what readers might need. If you're just talking about the text or the poem and you forgot to even name it by title, you know, that's a basic mistake that folks do when they know everything about the thing they're writing about. So sometimes it takes readers, outsiders, to help the writer do that work. And I really think that distancing process is why I do it. I do it much less for the feedback you actually get on an individual paper. The goal would be to improve your writing process overall, not just for one paper, but for all time in the future. So really that goal is that kind of distancing that critical thinking helps you do. So the practice of doing peer feedback is for you. It's not as much for the writer, him or herself or themselves. So I really see peer feedback as an opportunity to show me what you know about writing. So wow me. Can you find a thesis? Do you know what one looks like? Where is it? That kind of stuff. I want to see you do that And I think your writing will be better for having worked at figuring out how to do that. So the kind of feedback that I'm not looking for, I mean, you can of course praise, and oftentimes peers forget to praise. I hope you will. Tell each other what's working, what you like. If there are ideas you like, or there's a phrase you like, say it. But I think what I'm really looking for is some description. Is the stuff that should be there? Is it enough? Do you need more? And then I also need questions, right? So if it's not enough, can you ask a good question that answering it might give the person some language to use? So that's kind of like the strategy I'd rather have you use. I know it's hard sometimes to give people criticism, but constructive criticism is really about, I see what's on the page and lots of it is great. And here's some things I think you could do next, right? So it's just a set of, you know, some feedback for improvement. And I do think that's really important. Long ago, I worked in the entertainment industry, and my job a lot of the time was to write letters to get money back for my clients, like their credit card had charged them a $10 fee. And my job was to write this letter that would get that $10 back. And so my boss read a lot of my letters, and I think I'm a much better letter writer now as a result of having had a businessman tell me how to do it and help me sort of letter by letter make it really good. So I'm pretty good at writing letters to get money. As it turns out, in one situation, I wrote a letter of recommendation for myself. I think it was for a Rotary scholarship, and then my boss just signed it. And when I got the award and got to the Rotary awards banquet, someone pulled me aside and said, that was the best letter of recommendation I've ever read. And I couldn't tell him it was that I wrote it for myself. So I know this process of like trying to attune yourself to the needs of readers is a really important professional skill. Okay, so some guidelines for what to do as you work with someone else's stuff. Make sure to read the draft in full before you start commenting. Otherwise, you could waste a lot of time making notes about things that are dealt with in the next paragraph. I often teach myself that lesson when I'm up late at night trying to get draft feedback done. When we comment on the draft, that's what we're commenting on, not the writer. So it's not you, it's not about you. You didn't do this or you didn't do that. It's about the draft and what's there and what's not there. So that's a trick. Try to avoid you. I often find myself using passive voice because I don't want to you any of you as I'm giving you feedback. Provide plenty of detail, right? So if the writer has given you 3 pages of a draft and you only have a comment at the top of one page and the bottom of a second page, that's really not respectful, right? You haven't really engaged with the document. So make sure to be detailed. Make sure to, again, look for opportunities to praise. And then decide on some key issues that you want to ask for more work on. As I said, it's an exercise for you in analysis. So you'll be also showing me what you know about academic writing, but you'll do it without scoring the draft. So that's my job. I will score it when it's been revised. But you can use the rubric to point out areas for improvement that will help the student get a better score. So that's, again, what peers should be doing. I'll also say, please, please, please don't focus on sentence level stuff. Where to put the commas is not important right now, especially when a whole paragraph could get cut out of a paper. So let's not work on the grammar stuff until later. And really, I'd rather peers didn't do that to peers in a literature class, because I'm not teaching you how to do that in this class. If the draft does have particularly run-ons, I often find run-ons and fragments at the upper division level, and those are kind of major errors. And if the draft has that kind of stuff going on, I might talk about it. Or if the draft has some issues with punctuating quotations, which is sort of part of what we're trying to do in this literature class, is work with quotes, I might make those kinds of comments, but I won't be proofreading your papers for you. And I don't care about small errors. I care about maybe some patterns of error. If it looks like you're always not dealing with apostrophes well, I might ask you to do that. So I don't want peers to do grammar on each other. That would be bad. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns so far? Okay, so the areas that I would like you to comment on, and we'll practice doing this today. Is there a thesis, right? That's the main question with focus. Where does it appear? Is it in the last sentence of the first paragraph, which is where oftentimes thesis statements live? Sometimes in drafts, students will write all the way to the end of the paper, and in the conclusion, they'll just discover what it is they want to argue. And so the thesis is in the conclusion, right? So look for it. I go, hey, you don't have a thesis until the conclusion, but there it is, and I want you to bring it up to the introduction, right? So if you say good thesis and the person doesn't know where the thesis is, then that's not good feedback. So make sure to connect your comments to specific areas of the text. If they don't have a thesis, you can ask a question. What's important about the fact that Green Knight is green, right? I want to know, like, yeah, he's green. That's a good topic, but why? Why is he green? Okay, then the second thing you can do with focus is have a look at topic sentences, right? So are the first sentences of paragraphs connected to an argument? And if they're not, you can ask them to be, right? So oftentimes the first sentence will announce a topic, but it might not yet relate to a thesis. So you can ask for that connection to be made. And sometimes too, you can just try skimming through the first sentences of paragraphs and seeing if you can follow along. If so, that's probably got some good topic sentences. Organization is the second issue I want you to focus on. And there are, in particular, 4 areas that you can think about. One is paragraphs. The whole purpose of paragraphs is that they identify changes in topic, right? So there should be one topic per paragraph. Sometimes paragraphs are really long, and that's okay in literary analysis. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes there's a change in topic in the middle, and you can ask the writer to split them. Or if the paragraph is just unwieldy because it is so long, you can ask them to find a place to split it. Make sure that the ideas are moving forward logically. Often in literary analysis, the order has to do with the chronology of the story, right? So we might talk about the pentangle in a couple paragraphs and then need to come back to talk about the end. And you wouldn't probably talk about the end of the poem before you talked about the pentangle. So those things are logical. Transitions in my class are at the beginnings of paragraphs. And the reason for that is because if you put them at the ends, what often happens is then the topic sentence for the next paragraph is at the end of the previous paragraph. That's confusing. So if you have the transitions at the end, or your peer has it, just say move them down, right, to make sure that they're at the beginnings. I wouldn't start a new topic at the end of a paragraph. I would start it at the beginning of the next one. And then again, identify transitions that are working. Transitions like furthermore and therefore are nice, but they don't work unless it's clear how the point of the previous paragraph is connecting to the point of the current paragraph, right? So you can work on transitions. The last issue, I'm just going to see if I'm right. Yeah, last, right? The last issue would be development. So you can, again, praise ideas or thoughts or evidence that's in the paper. You can talk about your interest in the content, but I'm particularly looking at the writing, right? So we want to be looking for good evidence, quoted evidence. Is it there? Yay! If so, praise. Is it working? Is it the right evidence to do what the writer's trying to do? Is the evidence followed by discussion? And you might think about, is the quote paraphrased? Is there some close reading of wording? Is there some exploration of interpretation? And then the ends of paragraphs should wrap around to the thesis. So that's another piece of development that you could say, right, you got good evidence, you've got good analysis. Can you connect the end of this paragraph back to the thesis? Okay, I'm screeching to a halt. That's everything I know about giving feedback. Questions, comments, concerns? Happy to talk about rules your high school teachers told you about with writing that are perhaps not true. I often find students arrive in college with some weird ideas. But that's okay. I probably dish out my own weird ideas.
I just had a question about like the essentially like how we do this. Are we just doing that in the discussion thing and you just want us to kind of go down that like focus, organization, then development and actually just write it out in paragraph form?
I'm just going to leave that up to you. So there's a number of different ways you could do it. One, and I want the groups will get together at the end of class today and decide how they want to proceed. One way would be to do exactly that, just write out some paragraphs, right? Maybe a paragraph on focus, a paragraph on organization, a paragraph on development. How are things working? Where are they working? Another thing you could do would be to use embedded comments, right? Because you'll have access to the draft. You could go through and say, here's the thesis. Here's a good topic sentence. There's no evidence in this paragraph, right? So you could just lay in some embedded comments. Or you could do both. I will be giving you feedback, both embedded comments and an end comment. Another way to handle it would be to look at the draft and then come to a Zoom meeting, an in-person meeting, and then talk through the comments. And then the writer could just take notes on the feedback they're being provided. Of course, you could also write all your stuff down and give it to them and talk to them if that's what you want. What I kind of like with face-to-face interaction around drafts is that sometimes I don't think of everything. And when I hear someone else mention stuff, that gets my mind moving and I go, oh yeah, and then there's this, right? There's this other thing. So sometimes the conversation is really helpful. And also the readers might come up with some good solutions to problems that wouldn't necessarily emerge in just written comments. So yeah, so I guess I'm going to throw that back in your court. You all can figure out how to do it. What I'll need as the teacher is to know that it got done and how it got done. So we can talk a little bit about that later. If you're writing the comments down, I'll see them, no problem. Other questions?
And we're going to be doing this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you can you'll do it during, I assume you'll do it during class time, although if you decide you don't want to do a conversation, you could do it at any point tomorrow. Your group can decide that.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Good. Other questions? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is take a look at that draft I gave you. This is me. I'm writing about the Pardoner's Tale and the Canterbury Tales, which we didn't read. So I guess my plot is to get you away from the content, because you haven't read the Pardoner's Tale. You have no idea what's in it, unless you've read it, which you may have, but it wasn't assigned in this class. And so I want you to focus less on the content and more on the writing, right? So go back through focus, organization, and development. Have a look at this draft. You can do with it what you want, right? So if you want to, I don't know, if you have a printer nearby, you want to print it and write on the draft, you can do that. If you want to embed comments or take notes as you work, feel free. As I recommended, I would read it once through first, and then go back and try to think what you want to say about the writing. And then we'll get back together. I think let's take about 15 minutes to read and comment, and then we'll get back together as a class, and then I'll just ask you to share out some ideas about comments you might make on that draft. And yes, I am the writer, but I have no ego attached to it. So if it's a horrible paper, go for it. Show me that you know that it's a horrible paper. Questions? Okay, so we're going to come back at 1:37. And I'll just leave the Zoom open. I'm going to mute myself and then I'll be back here at 1:37.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Okay, is everybody back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so let's just gonna grab my, oops. All the controls are at the top of the screen and they don't always want to do what I want them to do. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm ready now. Okay, so let's see. Would someone be willing to provide feedback on the first paragraph? And I'll just make sure everyone has a chance to respond to something. So if somebody wants to volunteer to talk about the first paragraph, that would be great.
The thesis, I believe, is Chaucer's ironic strategy allows the reader to get involved in the text, making judgments for herself, regardless of Chaucer's own opinion about the pilgrims. So, like, it was obvious to see that. So that's a good start. Is always having a clear thesis.
Great. Good. Anybody disagree or want to pick out a different sentence from the first paragraph as a thesis?
I thought that it was the last sentence, partially because, that's like the typical structure. But the sentence that says, while Chaucer's criticism of the partner is deserved, the characterization attributes feminine qualities to the partner that also reinforce expectations of masculinity. And I, in part, knew that was, or guessed that was a thesis, because it's at the end and where it's located. But after reading through the whole thing, that's what the like each body paragraph was addressing and backing up, essentially.
I also
Great.
thought it was the last sentence too.
You did too, Kane.
Yeah.
I also agree. The feminine and masculine qualities come up repetitively throughout, especially in the last few paragraphs. So I think they're trying to make a full circle, so that as a thesis would make more sense, I think.
And I think the area that Garrett has identified is also where the introduction like raises a potential opposition argument and then argues against it. So it's probably the beginning of the thesis. Situating the argument. One way to get an argument is to find someone to fight with. So it sort of establishes something you can fight with. Yeah, good. Okay. How about the second paragraph?
So the first thing that I noticed about the second paragraph is that the language in the first sentence is pretty much rewording what was in the first paragraph. It says as depicted, which is kind of the same words they use in the end of the introduction paragraph. And it doesn't transition as cleanly as I think it could, as far as the focus could be clear.
Great. So that would be something we could add, maybe improve the transition or improve the topic sentence.
Yes.
Good. Good. What else about paragraph 2?
Is on top of the topic sentence, I think that it's more of a summary paragraph rather than a continuing with the argument paragraph. So I think it could be cleaned up in the sense of where it's focusing, what it's arguing, what point it's making towards the thesis.
And maybe it would help to have a stronger topic sentence that would identify that better. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Other stuff in paragraph 2? Okay. How about paragraph 3?
I think that it did a good job on explaining the feminine qualities in the partner's hair. It gave a lot of evidence and analyzed word choice in the passage provided. I would like to see more expanded on how the partner being viewed as feminine as a bad thing. Like, how are women viewed in society, and how would that carry towards the partner? How would that affect the reader's views?
Great. Yeah, how do we know it's negative? Maybe there's not enough analysis there yet to show that. Good. Good. Yeah, and
I also agree with the feminine.
Was that Tasha?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I also agree the feminine qualities and the language they picked out is a great example of the argument they're trying to further. However, they talk about an association with men and the negative views of women, and I think we can touch on it compared to men because they're making that argument, but there's not a lot of substance to go with that, as well as the negative views on women.
Great.
Feminine qualities more specifically.
And I like that you're kind of getting into the reasoning, right? So let's figure out if this is actually doing what it seems to be doing. Yeah, nice. Good. Okay, anything else? Paragraph 3. There's a lot of close reading in this one. Okay, how about paragraph 4?
Paragraph 4 did a good job. Like the transition was really clean. Which I know that like, I don't know. I don't see a lot of like good transition in my own essays necessarily. So like this is like a good example of without it being so blatant, it follows well into the next thing. So yeah, I think that was the biggest thing I noticed about this was like as opposed to like maybe where the first paragraph lacked a little bit in transition, this one was a really good example of it.
Great, thank you. Good. Other things about this paragraph? I think I haven't heard yet from Alexa and Caitlin. Anybody do you want to talk about any of the paragraphs or about the format? Feel free to chat if you don't want to use audio. So there's one thing that's missing format-wise, which is page numbers for the draft. But otherwise, and I guess you don't need the word lines in the citations. You know, it's obvious it's lines. So the word line doesn't have to be there. Good. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about what to say for peer feedback? We touched on focus, organization, and development, all 3 of those today. All right. Okay, so what I'd like to do is put you in groups, and not everyone's here today. And the one person I don't know the draft topic is Kane. Can you tell me what your close reading paper topic is?
Do you want me to just like restate my thesis?
Or just even to know, is it about Beowulf or Sir Gawain or
Beowulf.
Beowulf? Okay, actually that answers my question. Perfect. Okay, so we'll have I'll ask Flynn, Landry, and Garrett to be a group. So that's group one. Flynn's not here today, so I'll get in contact with him and let him know what you decide to do, how you want to handle the feedback. Group two is Tasha, Caitlin, and Kane. And then group three is Megan, Alexa, and Justice. And same thing for Justice. He's not here today, so I'll just get in touch with him and let him know what you decide. So what I'm gonna do is put you in breakout groups by group. Have a little bit of conversation around whether you wanna just post on the discussion board or whether you'd like to use a Zoom session to talk to each other. And then just come back to then when you're done talking, just come back to the whole group and just let me know what your plan is. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna create 3 groups. Let's see. One is Landry and Garrett. Group 2 is Tasha, Caitlin, Kane. And group 3 is Alexa and Megan. Okay, so I'm just gonna open them. I'm just gonna let them run a maximum of 5 minutes. And then, but you can come back when you're done deciding. Okay, here we go. So feel free to let me know how your group's gonna handle the feedback when you're ready.
We're just doing a discussion board, the posting through the discussion board.
Okay, so I think Landry's draft is already there and Garrett's is coming.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'll check with Flynn. I'll email him and make sure that I think there's a couple new posts that I haven't seen who's posted, but I'll make sure that he gets his there and knows what you're gonna do. So you're all set, ready to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
We'll also do the discussion board.
Same. Okay. Great. And I'll let Justice know. So you're all set. Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too. Well, what do you all want to do?
We decided to do a Zoom tomorrow.
Okay. So we'll just use the Zoom that's already set up,
Okay, perfect.
and I'll just be there to welcome you in, and then you all can work together until you're done.
Okay, yeah, we're just gonna do that tomorrow right at 1. So
Great. Yeah. So the normal Zoom link will work just fine.
awesome.
Okay. Well, then I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.